I am going to show you how to crochet this really cute heart lacy cover up top, whatever you want to call it, but it's basically a long sleeved lacy top, and it's got this really beautiful kind of heart motif running throughout it. It's really nice and lightweight. You can make a long sleeve version like I have, or a short sleeve version, or even a sleeveless one. I think this would look really cute as like a vest. I would say this tutorial is beginner friendly. You just need to know your basic stitches, and I show you how to do the rest. Whilst I'm here, please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and obviously subscribe to my channel. If you do end up making one, all of my socials are down below, and it's at Not Half Bad Crochet. I would love to see your version of this top, so feel free to give me a tag. So I'm going to show you how to do the lacy heart stitch that we need for our top. I'm really sorry if you can hear my fan in the background. It's very, very hot today, and I will not be turning it off because it is so hot. But yeah, this is the lacy heart stitch. It's a really pretty stitch. It is 6 rows, and you repeat rows 3 to 6. It's super, super easy, and once you kind of get going, you will kind of realize how simple and easy it is to do. In terms of the yarn, I would recommend a fine weight yarn. I will be using a fine weight cotton by Drops. This is the Loves You range. It is in shade number 11, and it's like this really lovely aubergine purple color. I'm not going to show you the tutorial with this yarn because it is a little bit dark, and I just want to make sure that you can see everything. But I would recommend a fine weight yarn. You can use cotton, you can use acrylic, whatever yarn you like, but a fine weight is what I would recommend. This calls for a 3mm hook. You are absolutely welcome to use a thicker weight of yarn. Maybe like a DK would be the thickest that I'd recommend. Anything thicker than a DK, your lace is gonna not look like lace in the end. Like, you can kind of see this looks very lacy when we kind of put the hearts together, but if these are thicker and with a thicker yarn, your hearts are going to be bigger, and your gaps in between your lace is going to be a lot bigger, as well as your chains, and you might find that you have a few kind of like tension issues if you use a thicker yarn. So yeah, fine weight yarn. I will be using a 3mm hook, and I will be showing you a sample piece with the Drops saffron yarn, which is also a fine weight yarn. This is in the color 61, and again it calls for a 3mm hook, but this is the yarn that I'm actually using for the piece. Okay, so for your measurement, your foundation chain measurement, you are ideally going to need a measuring tape. The measurement that we are going to be taking is, we're going to be doing 2, so you want to wrap your tape around the top of your bust, and then connect it over your bust if you have one, and then that is going to be measure number 1. It does wrap all the way around. This is going to be measurement number 1, and if you want it to be looser, obviously add on a little bit of slack for yourself. If you want it to be fitted, obviously do it your exact measurement. So it's the choice is yours fit wise. So this is going to be the measurement number 1, and you're going to divide this number by 2. Okay, divide this measurement by 2. The next measurement we are going to be taking is our waist, or basically wherever you want the top to sit. Mine's going to be cropped, so I am going to be doing mine at my waist, but obviously if you want it to be longer, you can do your hips. But like I said, mine's cropped, so I'm going to be doing my waist. And then again, if you want it to be quite loose, add a little bit of slack to your measurement. If you want it to be fitted, keep it fitted, and then whatever measurement this is, again divide it by 2. So whichever one of these numbers was the largest, either your bust or your waist, that's the measurement that you're going to be chaining to. You can also just chain and then measure your chain from one side of your underneath your bust, underneath your armpit, to the other side. You can sometimes see as well on clothing you have like a kind of joining seam in the middle. You can measure from that line, that seam, to the other side, and that will give you a pretty accurate fit, especially if it's a top that you like the fit of. That's going to give you a very similar fit. And that is your foundation chain measurement. Starting with a slip knot on your hook, you're going to chain to a multiple of 16. I'm going to be doing a sample piece, so I'm going to chain 32. And once you've got your multiple of 16 done, we are going to add an additional 4 chains. 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that's our foundation chain all done. And for row 1, we are going to double crochet into the 4th chain from your hook. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we're going to double crochet into that 4th chain from your hook. And then we're going to chain 3 and skip 4 chains, and we're going to double crochet into the 5th stitch. So let's chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to skip 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then into the 5th stitch we are going to do a double crochet. And then we're going to double crochet into the next 6 stitches. So you'll have a total of 7 double crochets, including the one we've just done. So we're doing 6 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So we should have 7 double crochets in total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. And then we're going to chain 3 again. 1, 2 and 3. And again we're going to be skipping 4 stitches, and we will double crochet into the 5th stitch. So we are skipping 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we're double crocheting into the 5th stitch. And we're going to do a total of 3 double crochets into the same stitch. So we need to do 2 more. So a total of 3 double crochets. That's 2 and 3. So we have 3 double crochets into that same stitch. Here is what our row should be looking like so far. And then we're just going to be repeating that. So we're going to chain 3. And then we're going to skip 4 stitches, and into the 5th stitch we are going to do 7 double crochets. So skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and into the 5th stitch we're going to do a double crochet. And then we will do a total of 7 in the next few stitches. So that's number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, 6 and 7. So we should have a total of 7 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. And you're just going to be repeating that until you hit the end of your row. So after your 7 double crochets, you're chaining 3, skipping 4 stitches, and then doing 3 double crochets in 1 stitch. Chain 3, skip 4 stitches again, and do your 7 double crochets in each stitch. And then once you get to the end of your row, you should have done your final 7 double crochets, and you should have 5 chains left. And here we're going to chain 3, and we're going to double crochet into the final stitch, which should be your 5th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So we're doing 2 double crochets into that final stitch. 1 and 2. And here is what row 1 should be looking like. For row 2 we're going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and we're going to turn our work. Your chain 3 does count as a stitch throughout this entire pattern, by the way. Okay, for row 2, because our chain 3 counts as a stitch, we won't be inserting our first stitch into the base because this counts as our first stitch. So we will technically be skipping that one. So we're going to double crochet in the next stitch along. And then we're going to place another double crochet into the same stitch. So you should have your chain 3 and then 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Here we're going to chain 3, And next we're going to be doing 4 double crochets together in the next 4 stitches. So we're going to be skipping our chain 3 from the row below and just heading straight over to our 7 double crochets from the row below, and we're going to be doing 4 double crochets together. So yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. That's number 1. We're going to do the same, yarn over, insert into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. That's number 2, and we're going to do it until we have done 4. So that's number 3 and number 4. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 loops on your hook. We're then going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So next we're going to do the same thing where we double crochet 4 together, but our first stitch will be in the last stitch that we just did. So you can see here, this is the last stitch that we worked into. That is going to be the stitch that we first work into. So we are going to insert our hook into there. That's 1 double crochet, 2, 3, and 4. You should have 5 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 of them, and then we're going to chain 3 again. And you should see that this is actually the top of your heart, so this is kind of the part that looks like a butt, the top of your heart, and that is now kind of formed there. So after your chain 3, we're going to again be skipping the chain 3 from the row below and heading straight over to our little cluster of 3 double crochets over here. And this is going to turn into your heart. So this is actually the bottom V of your heart, and this is what's going to be this is going to turn into a full heart. So after our chain 3, we are going to head over and double crochet into that first stitch. But in each of these little clusters to create the heart, we're going to be increasing on the first stitch and on the last stitch. So we've just done 1 double crochet, so we're going to increase by doing another double crochet into the same stitch. So that's 2 in there. We're going to do 1 double crochet in the next stitch. And then we also have our last stitch, which we will be increasing in as well. So we are going to be doing 2 double crochets in there. 1 and 2. And then we're going to chain 3 again, 1, 2 and 3, and then you're just repeating the same thing as you did in your previous cluster. So we're going to do our 4 double crochets together. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we're going to go through all of those. We're going to chain 5 and then do the same thing, but entering our first stitch into the last stitch that we just did. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then yarn over, pull through all of those loops. And then now we are reaching the end of our row, but obviously you will be repeating the same thing until you've reached the end of your row. So you're going to chain 3, you're going to increase on your next little cluster, so 2 at the start, 1 in the middle and 2 at the end, chain 3 and do your 4 double crochets together, chain 5, 4 double crochets together, and then we are going to chain 3. And at the end of this row we are going to do 2 double crochets into the next stitch. So again we are skipping the chain 3, so we're going to do 2 double crochets into the next stitch, 1 and 2, and because our chain 3 from the row below is also a stitch, we will be doing a double crochet into the top of your chain 3, and so you should have 3 stitches at the end of your row. And next we will be doing chain 3 and turning our work. Here is what the end of row 2 should look like. For row 3 we are going to be doing a double crochet into our first stitch. Remember, your chain 3 does count as a stitch, so this stitch at the base of your chain 3 we will not be working into, it will be the next one. So technically you're skipping a stitch, but your chain 3 counts as a stitch, so don't forget that. So we will be doing a double crochet into the next stitch along, and then also a double crochet into the next stitch. So you should have your chain 3 and 2 double crochets at the start of row 3. We're then going to chain 3. There's also chain 3s in this, so it's pretty easy to kind of remember how many chains you've got in between each little heart that you're doing. And after your chain 3, we are again skipping the chain 3 here, and we're going straight to the center of the top of our heart and this chain 5 that we did from the row below, and you're going to find the middle chain. So we have 1, 2 and 3, and you're going to find the 3rd chain from your chain 5, and we're going to be putting 3 double crochets into the 3rd chain. So there's 1, 2 and 3, and that is now forming the base of our next heart. So you can kind of see how it like tessellates on top of each other. Each heart is basically on top of each other with a lace in between. And then from here we're going to chain 3 again, and we are again skipping our chain 3, and we are heading over to the base of our new heart. And it's basically the exact same as what we did in the row below, where we are increasing in the first stitch and in the last stitch. So we are going from 3 stitches to 5 stitches to now 7 stitches. So we're going to do a increase into that first stitch. So that's number 1 and number 2. So that's 2 double crochets into the first stitch. That's stitch, and that's number 4, 5, and then we do an increase into the last one. So that's 6 and 7. So you can kind of see it's increasing in size, and that's the base of our heart there. And then you're just going to repeat the same thing. So we are going to chain 3 again, and then over to the center of our hearts in the middle chain, which will be the 3rd chain. So 1, 2 and 3, we're going to do 3 double crochets into the center. 1, 2 and 3. So we're just going to be repeating the same thing. After you've done your cluster of 3, you're going to chain 3, you're going to do your increases, so you go from 5 stitches to 7 stitches, chain 3, do your cluster, chain 3, and repeat until you get to the end of your row. So when you're at the end of your row, we're going to chain 3 again, and we're going to do 3 double crochets into each stitch. Remember, your chain 3 is a stitch. So we're going to double crochet, 1, 2, and then the final one goes into the top of your chain 3 from the row below. 3 double crochets there. Next we are going to chain 3 again and turn our work, and here is what your piece should be looking like after row 3. Row 4, we are going to be doing a double crochet into our first stitch. Again, your chain 3 counts as a stitch, so it's not this one at the base here. Your first stitch is the next one along, so we're going to double crochet into that stitch. And we're actually going to be skipping the next stitch along, because this part on the side forms the side of your heart. So this is actually the kind of top part of your heart, but on the side, if that makes any sense. So you have your chain 3 and you have your first double crochet. We will be skipping this next double crochet. We're then going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and we have a new base of our heart. So very similarly to the second row, we are going to be increasing, so we need to put 2 double crochets in the first stitch and 2 double crochets in the last stitch. So we're basically repeating the same thing that we did over here on the first row. So on the second row, sorry. So we're going to double crochet twice into that first stitch, double crochet into the second one, and then 2 double crochets into the final stitch as well. And so we've gone from 3 stitches to 5 stitches, and this is again going to form our heart. And then we're going to chain 3 again. I told you it was a lot of chain 3s. And we are now moving over to one of our hearts, which is very nearly completed. We are just going to be repeating the kind of top part, the butt cheeks part, on the top of our heart here. So we have chained 3, and we are going to do our 4 double crochets together into the next 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4. 5 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all of them. Then we're going to chain 5, and we're going to do the same thing with our first stitch being the last stitch we just did. So 1, 2, 3 and 4.
We're going to yarn over and go through all 5 loops on our hook, and that is one of our hearts all completed. We're going to chain 3, and you're just repeating the exact same thing. So we have a new little cluster here, which is the base of our heart, and we're going to be increasing this. So that's 2 double crochets into the first stitch, 1 and 2, double crochet into the next, and then 2 double crochets into the last one. So we've gone from 3 to 5 again. And so here is what our row looks like so far. You can see that there is a full heart in the center of our lace, which is so cute. I love seeing the heart when it kind of fills up properly. So yeah, so you're just going to be repeating the same thing. So you've done your increase from 3 to 5 stitches. You're going to chain 3. You're then going to do your 4 double crochets together, chain 5, 4 double crochets together, and then just repeat the same thing until you hit the end of your row. At the end of your row, you're going to chain 3, and you're going to skip 1 stitch, and you're going to do 2 double crochets. So you're going to skip this first stitch, and you're going to double crochet into the following stitch, and then you're going to double crochet into the top of your chain 3, which counts as a stitch. And that's the end of row 4. So for row 5, we're going to chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and turn our work. Here is what your work should be looking like so far. And for row 5, we're going to skip this part on the edge of our row entirely, and we're just moving over to our base of our next heart. And very similarly, what we've been doing, we have gone from 3 stitches to 5 stitches, so now we need to increase to 7 stitches. So we are going to do our increases. So in the first stitch, we do 2 double crochets, 1, 2, the next stitch is number 3, 4, 5, and then in the last stitch we put 2, so that's 6 and 7. And then of course we are going to chain 3 again, 1, 2 and 3, and then we're moving over to the top of our heart, and very similarly to row 3, we are going to be doing our 3 double crochets in the center chain, which is the 3rd chain along at the top of our heart. So we are going to double crochet into that 3rd chain along. That's number 1, 2 and 3. Then again chain 3, and again we are increasing to form our next heart. So we're going from 5 stitches to 7. We are doing 2 in the first stitch, and then double crochet into every stitch along, and then 2 in the final stitch. And you have gone from 3 to 5 to 7. And then you're just going to repeat the same thing. So you're going to chain 3, you're going to do your cluster of 3 double crochets into the center chain from the row below, chain 3, do your increases to 7 stitches, and just keep going until you get to the end of your row. At the end, you're going to chain 3, and you're going to skip your last stitch, and you're going to do 1 double crochet into the top of your chain, just like that. And then we are going to chain 3 and turn our work. And here is what your piece should be looking like after row 5. And for the start of row 6, we're going to be doing 2 double crochets into the base of our chain 3. Our chain 3 does still count as a stitch, but we do need to increase. So we are doing 2 stitches at the start there. And then of course we are going to chain 3, and now moving over to our heart, it is time to do the butt cheeks of the heart, and we are going to be doing our 4 double crochets together. So that's 1, 2, 3 and 4, yarn over, pull through all 5 loops, chain 5, and do the same thing with our first stitch being the last stitch that we just did. So number 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then yarn over, pull through all 4, and then chain 3. And we're just going to repeat the same thing where we have gone from 3 stitches to 5 stitches. The rows are very repetitive, it's just the start and the end of the rows that are going to be slightly different on each one. So we are going into that first stitch and we're going to increase, so that's 2, 3, and then we're increasing again, 4 and 5. So again, this is the base of our next heart. We've gone from 3 to 5 double crochets, and we're chaining 3, and then we are doing our 4 double crochets together as we have been doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through all 5, chain 5, and doing our 4 double crochets again together, with our first stitch being the last stitch we've just done. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are going to yarn over and go through all 5 of those loops, and then we're going to chain 3, and you're just going to repeat the same thing until you hit the end of your row. And at the end of the row, once you've done your last 4 double crochets together, you're going to chain 3. And at the very end of our row, we've got our chain 6 from the row below, and we're going to be putting a double crochet in the 3rd chain from the bottom. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to be putting a double crochet into that chain. And we're going to be doing a total of 3 double crochets into the same spot. So that's number 2 and number 3. And then from here we are going to chain 3, turn our work, and now you can do your row repeats from row 3 to 6, and that is the stitch. It's very, very simple. Once you kind of get the hang of it, you could probably notice that it was very repetitive. It was just the kind of start and ends of the row that will be slightly different. So repeat row 3 to 6 until you get to your desired measurement. With this stitch as well, I do feel that the hearts can be quite long and quite droopy, and when you kind of stretch them out, they look a little bit more normal. So I would recommend blocking your panels before you join them, because I do feel like the hearts just look a little bit better. It's totally personal preference. If you don't kind of see any problem with the kind of long hearts, that's entirely up to you, but I personally like how they look when they're a little bit kind of wider and shorter, if that makes sense. I don't really like it when they're kind of long and gangly. I think they look a lot nicer when they're stretched out. So yeah, I will be blocking my panels before I join them, and I would recommend also doing that.
Okay, so when you feel like you're reaching the height of the top that you want, whether it's cropped or long, however long you want it to be, I reckon mine is very close. I want mine to sit pretty much where my current t-shirt is, so quite cropped and at my waist. Wherever it hits your collarbone and you still have a little bit of space, maybe like an inch and a half or 2 inches from the piece to the top of your shoulder, that's basically where we want to stop and pause. So when you reach this measurement, top of your collarbone, bottom of your neck, or until you have about 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the top of your shoulder, that's when we want to just pause, and then I'm going to show you how to do the neckline for the front. Whilst you've also kind of got it against your body, you just want to map out ideally where you're going to want your neckline to be. So this is basically going to be your head hole. So you want to make sure it's obviously big enough that you can fit your head through, but you don't want it to be maybe too big because it might fall off the shoulders, unless that is the look that you're going for. So for me, I just like to put it against my body and just kind of roughly map out with some stitch markers or safety pins where I'm going to want my head hole. I do want mine to be relatively big, or I suppose quite loose, so I want it to have a wider neckline than the top I'm currently wearing. So I have placed mine here. Once you have done this, you are going to divide your foundation chain number by 2 and find your middle stitch, and then just make sure that you have equal measurements for each of your stitch markers. So that's the easiest way to do it, is to divide your foundation chain measurement by 2, put a stitch marker wherever that is, and then count each stitch until you reach one of your stitch markers. Then do the exact same thing onto the other side. This is our front piece, and you should have, like I showed in your measurement, you should have about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of shoulder space that you want to create, and you should have also mapped out your head hole with safety pins, stitch markers, whatever you prefer using. One thing to note is that you want to make sure that you have finished this row on row 6. So this is going to be finished on row 6. And where you place your stitch markers is also important. Obviously make sure you've got your measurement for your head hole to your desired measurement, but you just want to make sure that where you place your stitch marker is at the front of one of your V's. So the V that makes the bottom of your heart, just make sure it's on the first stitch. So the part where my stitch marker is on the first stitch
of our V, on the base of our heart. Hopefully that makes sense. So as you can see on this side, I have already done my shoulder part, and you can see that this is about 1.5 to 2 inches. And we're basically just repeating our rows, but it's going to be ever so slightly different. And we're just adding an additional 4 rows to create another heart. Okay, so to start, we are going to attach our yarn to our right side. If you still have your yarn attached, you can obviously just work on that side, which is what I did for my left side, but obviously now I need to do the right hand side. And so you're just going to attach your yarn into your first stitch. So remember, your chain 3 is a stitch, so we're going to insert our hook into the top of our chain 3 and attach our yarn there. You can also do a slip knot if you prefer, but I just like attaching it like this. So we're going to start by chaining 3, and our chain 3 does count as a stitch. And so since our chain 3 is a stitch, we are essentially skipping this first base stitch, and we're going to double crochet into the next stitch, and then we're going to double crochet into the next one. And we are basically just doing the exact same thing as we did for row 3. And you want to just work row 3 as normal until you reach your safety pin or stitch marker. So do row 3 as you normally would do until you reach your stitch marker, and meet me back when you're done. So I've done my last cluster of 3 double crochets and my last chain 3, and next is my stitch marker. So I'm going to be inserting my stitch into the first stitch on this cluster, which is exactly where my stitch marker is. So we're going to be putting 2 double crochets into this stitch. There's 1 and 2, and then we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. So we're not going to be completing the whole row, we're just working up until our stitch marker. So after you've turned our work, we're just going to be working row 4, and we won't be, because obviously our chain 3 does count as a stitch, we won't be working into the base of this stitch, we'll be working into the next one, and we're just going to be placing 1 double crochet into there. And now we are on to our row 4 pattern repeat. So you just want to complete the rest of the row as per row 4, and then meet me at the end of row 4. Alright, so I've reached the end of my row. I've done my final increase and my final chain 3, and at the end, as we always do for row 4, we are going to skip this first stitch, and we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1 in this stitch and 1 in the top of the chain 3. 1 and 2. And that is the end of row 4, and we are going to now chain 6 and turn our work. Okay, so we're going to skip the chain 3 and we're going to be working our row 5 as we usually do until you get to the end of your row, aka at your stitch marker. Okay, I've reached the end of my row. I've done my last 7 double crochets, my last chain 3, and in our final stitch we are going to skip this stitch, and in our final stitch we're just going to do 1 double crochet in the top of our chain 3. We are then going to chain 3 and turn our work. We are moving on to row 6. So just like we always have done for row 6, we are going to do 2 double crochets in the base of our first stitch. 1 and 2. And then you're going to do your row 6 as normal, and at the end you are going to do 3 double crochets in the third chain as we have been, and you can cut off your yarn. If you want to make your neckline a little bit deeper, or if you need to do more rows, just repeat what we did for row 3 to 6 and keep going until you reach your preferred neckline. Okay, so now the neckline for my front piece is all finished. As you can see, I obviously have some ends to weave in, but it's all finished, and this part here, this center part, is my head hole. This is how the top of your front piece should be looking. Obviously, depending on the height of your neckline, you might have more rows on both of these sides. Just make sure that you are doing equal rows and you should be good. So once you have finished this is your front panel all done. Your back panel should just be one big old rectangle with no increases, no decreases. You can end on any row as well, so you don't have to kind of end on any specific row. It should just be one big rectangle that is your desired height as per the measurements that I've shown you. For our sleeve measurements, we need our measuring tape again, and it's a very simple measurement. You are just going to be wrapping it over the top of your arm, and that is the measurement. So as long as it's the top of your arm, because that is typically the largest part of your arm, you are literally going to just wrap your measuring tape around. If you want it a little bit looser, again, add some slack as we have done before, if that's your preference. If you want it to be tight and fitted and to be kind of stretched over your arm, obviously do it to the exact measurement. It's entirely your preference on the fit, but that is how we measure for our sleeves. And to do our sleeves, we are just doing the exact same lacy stitch pattern, repeating then rows 3 to 6, but we are just chaining to the measurement that we have just taken, which is the top part of our arm. And you want to keep going until your sleeve falls from the top of your arm down to your wrist. Obviously, if you're making a long sleeved one, if you want to do a shorter sleeved one, or even a 3/4, whatever length sleeve you want. And once you have all 4 panels done, your front panel, your back panel, and 2 sleeves, come back and I will show you how we're going to connect them. Okay, so next we are going to be joining our panels, and we have our front panel here and our back panel here. So the best way to do this is to lie them out flat, ideally on like the floor or your bed or a desk or something like that, and then it will be a bit easier for you to kind of visualize where it is we're going to be stitching together. So this is the front panel, as you can see, with our neckline here, and then we have our back panel. The easiest way to line them up is to just fold over your back panel, and you want your hearts to obviously be facing the same way. As you can see, they are both facing the same direction, and then you literally just take this bottom corner and lift it up just like this. We're going to be seaming together, which I'm going to show you exactly how to do, is from this shoulder to this shoulder. The easiest way to do it is to just kind of pinch this corner together, and then you can kind of pick it up, and then these two panels together is what we're going to be seaming together. And just to give you a visual of where we'll be attaching our sleeves, you want your sleeves to be facing, the hearts to be kind of straight, not upside down. And what you want to do is take your foundation chain number that you did for your sleeves, divide it by 2, and count those stitches across, and put a stitch marker in the center stitch. And then wherever the center stitch is, where obviously you placed your stitch marker, you're going to put your stitch marker that's on your sleeve and attach it to the seam of our shoulder. So it will be middle part of your sleeve, and then once you've seamed your shoulders together, then you're going to attach that stitch marker to that seam, and then along here is where we will be attaching the sleeve. Okay, so here is the shoulder pieces together. This is my front panel, this is my back panel, and we are just going to pinch them together and then lift them up and bring them towards ourselves. So here is the back panel, and then here is the front panel. It doesn't matter which way you're doing it, because there's no right or wrong side on our like lacy pattern that we're doing. Also, sorry if you can hear my partner typing in the background, we share an office. Want your corners to be against each other, and we're just going to insert our hook into the first stitch on one of our panels, and then we're going to do the same thing onto our second panel. And then you're going to attach your yarn and then chain 1, and we're going to go back into that same stitch and do a single crochet. So we're going to be single crocheting our panels together. You can optionally whip stitch them together, slip stitch them together, whatever you prefer. I just find that single crochet is the easier method for me, and also the strongest. So very simply, we're just going to be putting our hook into each stitch along in the front and the back, and single crocheting both of those pieces together. So insert into the front and the back, single crochet them both together. So you just want to keep doing that until you reach the end of your shoulder, and then meet me back when you're done. Okay, so I've just reached my final stitch, and just an FYI, when you're going through the chains, you want to make sure that you're going through the actual chain and not underneath it. So you can see I've inserted my stitch into each and every chain rather than going underneath through the loop. And when you're done, you just want to chain 1 at the end of your row, and then you can cut off your yarn, leave a nice long tail so you can weave it in later. Pull through and give it a little tug, and now your top and your front and your back panel are now joined, and you can kind of see the seam on the inside here. And then you just want to repeat the exact same thing to your other side, and just make sure that when you're joining your other side that you leave it inside out. So you want your seam to be facing you, and make sure that both of your panels are the same way. And then you're going to be doing the exact same thing, joining your shoulder pieces together by single crocheting them together, and then cut off your yarn. Whilst I'm here as well, I'm going to show you how to attach your sleeve. We're basically doing the exact same thing, and as I mentioned before, you want to find the middle stitch of your sleeve. So the easiest way to do that is to divide your foundation chain number by 2, count those stitches across and insert a stitch marker. I'm going to guesstimate mine is probably about here, so let me go into the chain. And then you want to insert the stitch marker into the seam that we have just sewn together, which would be here. And then you're just going to attach your stitch marker like this, so it's a bit easier for you to sew everything together. And then where we're going to be sewing is basically across this line here, so we're going to be literally sewing the sleeve to the top and the back panels. And the easiest way to do that is to obviously add your stitch marker to the center and the center seam, and then just slide everything over to your left hand side. This is the end of our sleeve, and then we're just going to pick up our front or back panel, whichever one it is, and then here is where you will start single crocheting your panels together. Okay, so finish joining your panels together with the shoulder seam and then the sleeves, and then I'll meet you back to show you how to connect the entire piece together. Okay, here is an example of how your piece should look. Now we've seamed together the 2 front and back panels, and we've seamed together the sleeves. You just want to make sure for this next part that your seams are on the inside. So as you can see, this is facing the right way up towards me, and then this with the seam on the inside is the wrong way facing down. So this is kind of how our piece is going to look, and the next part we just need to join it all together. So the easiest way to do that is to just grab this corner and fold it over to meet the other corner. Same with the sleeve, and then pull down this corner to meet this corner, and then same with the sleeve on the other side. So to start, you are going to insert your hook into the first stitch on the bottom of your body piece. So rather than starting on the sleeve, you're going to start on the body. Insert your hook, chain 1, single crochet into the same stitch, and then single crochet your panels together until you reach the armpit, and then across the side of the sleeve until you get to the end. And you're gonna stop there and don't cut off your yarn, and when you've seamed your panels together just along here, and then meet me back when you're at the end of your sleeve. Okay, so I have just seamed up the side of my piece. This is my armpit, and then this is the bottom of my sleeve. So I've just finished my final stitch at the bottom of my sleeve, and I'm just going to turn my work the right way round. I only have like a little bit of yarn left, so I don't have like a lot of yarn to deal with, but if you have still like a large skein or a large ball, you might need to like feed it through your sleeve just to avoid getting tangled. So turn your work the right way round now. Okay, so my work is now the correct way round. Here is our sleeve hole, and I've just picked up my working yarn again, and what we're going to do is we're just going to single crochet into every stitch along, including inserting our hook into each of the chains. And once you've single crocheted into every stitch and you are back at your starting point, come and meet me when you're done. I've just finished off my last stitch, and to close off this round we're just going to insert our hook into our first stitch and slip stitch to join the round. And then we're going to chain 1 and then turn our piece. So you're not turning it inside out, you are literally just turning it around. And then all we're going to do is a single crochet into every stitch along, and then come back around, a slip stitch to join, and then do that for one more row. So you should have 3 rows in total, including this row. And when you've done your 3 rows, come and meet me back. Okay, my final row is done. I've just slip stitched to join and chained 1, and I'm going to cut off my yarn, leave a nice long tail so you can weave it in later, and pull your yarn through and give it a tug. And this is the kind of, I suppose, ribbing or the end of the sleeve. I think it just gives it like a nice finished look, and it doesn't give you those kind of raw edges. This is 3 rows. Obviously, if you want a bit more of length, or you want some more kind of the ribbing look, feel free to do more than 3 rows, or you could do 2 rows. I think a minimum of 2 rows is a good way to go, and then you can do however many rows you want. So I've done 3, and this is what that looks like. And then you're going to do the same thing for your other side. So you're going to seam up the side of the top and then along the bottom of the sleeve, keep your yarn attached, and then you can do your single crochet along the bottom of the row of the sleeve. Just make sure that you turn your work inside out again, because obviously we've turned it the right way around. Make sure your work is inside out when you're seaming the edge of your panels together, and then when you get to the end of your sleeve, the end of connecting your sleeve, then that's when you turn your work the right way around to do the final single crochet rows on the end of your sleeve. And once you've done that, meet me back, and then we're going to do the neckline, and then we're going to do the bottom of the top as well. I would definitely recommend trying it on just to see how it fits. The next thing we're going to do is basically the single crochets that we did at the end of our sleeve. Just like this, we're going to be doing it to the neckline and to the bottom of our piece. So we're just going to be doing the exact same thing. This is the front of my piece, and it is the right way around. So you're just going to flip it over so the back is facing you. It's still the right way around, so it's not inside out, it's just the back of it is now facing you. So we're just going to be doing the exact same thing. You're going to attach your yarn in your corner or in the middle of your back, and then we're going to chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch, single crochet into every stitch including into the chains, and then we are going to slip stitch to join, turn our work, and single crochet again. I personally am probably going to do 3 rounds, but like it was for the sleeves, a minimum of 2 rounds of single crochet, or however many rounds that you want to do. I'll probably be doing 3. And then you want to do the exact same thing for the bottom of your piece. So again, you want to attach your yarn in the bottom corner of your piece, of the back corner. So just make sure the back of it is facing you, make sure it's the right way round so the seams are on the inside. Do the exact same thing as we did for the neckline and the sleeves. You can do a minimum of 2 rounds, however many rounds you like, but a minimum of 2 rounds is what I'd recommend. And then your piece is finished. So fasten off, and then you want to weave in your ends.
And the top is all finished. This is kind of roughly how it should look for you. I added a little bit of length to my sleeve because I kind of like it when it hangs down. I think this looks really, really cute. I love how it fits. I did go for kind of a very like loose and baggy sort of vibe. You could definitely make it a little bit tighter, a little bit more form-fitting. And I just paired it with this black skirt, which I think looks really, really cute. Here's a little close-up of the lace. I think it looks so good, and it kind of matches my hair as well, which I think is super cute. This is going to be such a good piece for like a cover-up, like a swimsuit cover-up, if you're going on holiday or anything. And also, I think it's just going to be really fun to have like a little bandeau bra underneath it. You could totally wear this at a festival. I feel like this is like a nice everyday piece. You could wear like a vest top underneath it as well if you don't want it to be as kind of revealing. But this is such a fun little top, and I hope you enjoyed making it. If you do end up giving this a go, I would love to see your version. If you give me a tag, my socials are all linked below, but my @ is not half bad crochet. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and enjoyed making your own version of the heart lacy top.